Okay, so this is Numbers 23. This is Balaam exhorting Israel. Balaam now turned back to Balak, who weighted him with princes. He now wanted to begin to curse Israel, but his mouth, far from being able to utter the words, was on the contrary compelled to praise and bless Israel. He said, I have found myself upon the high places in company with the patriarchs, and thou, Balak, hast cast me down from the heights. Through thee did I lose the gift of prophecy. Both of us are ungrateful men if we wish to undertake evil against Israel. For, had it not been for their father Abraham, for whose sake God saved Lot out of the ruins of the cities, there should not be no Balak, for thou art one of Lot's descendants. And had it not been for Jacob, I, Laban's descendant, should not now be on earth. For no sons were born unto Laban until after Jacob had come into his house. Thou didst bring me out of Amram to curse Israel. But it was this land that their father Abraham left, laden with blessings. And it was this land also that their father Jacob entered, laden with blessings. Shall now a curse come upon them from this land? How can I curse them if he that curseth them bringeth a curse upon him? Thou moreover wished me even to curse Jacob. Hast thou urged me to curse a nation that were only the descendants of Abraham or of Isaac? I might have been able to do so, but to curse Jacob's descendants is as bad as if a man were to come to a king and say to him, the crown that thou wearest upon thy head is worthless. Would such a man be permitted to live? The Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. In Israel, said the Lord, will I be glorified. How now shall I curse them? How shall I curse whom God has not cursed? Even when they have been worthy of a curse, they have not been cursed. When Jacob went in to receive the blessings, he went in through craft and said to his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. Doth not he deserve a curse out of whose mouth issueth a lie? Yet, far from being cursed, he was even blessed. Ordinarily, a legion that stirs up sedition against their king is declared guilty by death. But Israel has denied God, saying, These be thy gods, O Israel. Should they not have been destroyed? God, however, did not even at that moment withdraw from them his love, but left to them the clouds of glory, manna, and the well, even after they had adored the calf. Moresoever, often they sinned, and God threatened them with a curse. Still, he did not say that he would bring it upon them, whereas in his promises of blessings, he always tells them that he himself would send them upon Israel. How shall I curse? God does not curse. Israel is a nation of whom God thought even before the creation of the world. It is the rock upon which the world is founded. For when God was considering the scheme of creation, he thought, how can I create the world if the idolatrous generation of Enos and the generation of the flood will arouse my anger? He was about to detest from the creation of the world. When he saw before him Abraham's form, and he said, now I have found a rock upon which I can build, one upon which I can form the world. How too shall I curse this nation that are protected and surrounded by the merits of the patriarchs and the wives of the patriarchs, as if by lofty mountains and steep hills, so that if Israel sin, God forgives them as soon as Moses prays to him to be mindful of the patriarchs. I was an era when I believed Israel could be easily attacked, and now I know that they have taken deep root in the earth and cannot be uprooted. God forgives them many sins out of consideration for their having preserved the token of the Abrahamic covenant, and the powerless as I am to curse them alone, just as powerless as I am to curse them together with another nation. For it is a people that shall dwell alone, and shall not be reckoned among the nations. Israel is distinguished from all the other nations by their custom, by their food, by their token of the covenant upon their bodies, and by the token upon their doorsteps. Therefore God does not judge them at the same time with other nations, for he judges the latter in the darkness of the night, but the former in bright daylight. Israel is a separate people. Alone they enjoy the blessings God gives them. No other nation rejoices with Israel. So too in the Messianic time, Israel will quite alone rejoice in delights and pleasures, whereas in the present world it may also partake of the universal welfare of the nations. I am not able to accomplish anything against a nation that zealously fulfills God's commandments and that owes its existence to the devotion with which the wives of the patriarchs obeyed the commandments of Yah. Let me die the death of the righteous, and let my last end be like his. Balaam in these words spoke an unconscious prophecy, to wit, that he should be entitled to participate in the fate of the righteous, to his share in the future world, if he died the death of the righteous, a natural death, but not otherwise. He died, however, a violent death, and thus lost his share in the future of the world. When Balak saw that Balaam, instead of cursing, praised and exalted Israel, he led him to the top of Pisgah, hoping that he might there succeed in cursing Israel by means of his sorcery. Balak had discovered that Pisgah was to be a place of misfortune for Israel. Hence he thought that Balaam would there utter his curse against Israel. He was, however, mistaken. The disaster there awaited Israel was the death of their leader Moshe, who died there, and God refused to grant Balaam's wish on the spot also. So God indeed appeared to Balaam, but what he said to him was, "Go again unto Balak and bless Israel." Balaam did not wish to return to Balak at all, to disappoint him a second time, but God compelled him to return to Balak and communicate to him the blessings of Israel. Balaam now turned back to Balak, whom he found standing by his burnt offering. But whereas the first occasion the king had awaited Balaam, surrounded by all his princes, Balaam now saw only a few notables surrounding Balak. Most of the princes had deserted their king without awaiting Balaam, for they expected nothing further from him after the first disappointment he had caused them. Balak as well did not now receive him as kindly, but mockingly asked, "And what hath the Lord spoken?" hinting in his way that Balaam was unable to say what he wished, but only what God willed. Balaam replied to the scofful words of Balak, "Rise up, Balak, thou mayest not be seated when God's words are spoken. God is not a man of flesh and blood, that makes friends and disowns them as soon as he finds such are as better than they. God is not so, for he doth not cancel the vow he made to the patriarchs, for he promised to bestow Canaan upon their descendants, and he fulfilled his promise. He always fulfills that which he has promised to Israel, but allows the evil with which he threatens them to be unfulfilled as soon as they repent from their sins. God sees not their sins, but he sees their good deeds. Thou, Balak, sayest to me, Come, curse Jacob for me, but a thief can enter a vineyard that hath a keeper, only if the keeper sleeps. But he that keepeth Israel neither sleepeth nor slumbers. And how then can I enter their vineyard? If, however, thou dost think that I cannot harm Israel on account of Moses, who is their keeper, know then that his successor will be as invincible as he. And through the sound of trumpets he will overthrow the walls of Jericho. Then Balak furthermore saith, A people hath gone forth out of Egypt, but they have not only gone forth, God brought them forth out of Egypt, who combines in himself the powers of the angels and of the invisible demons. Swift as the flight of a bird doth fortune as well as misfortune come upon Israel, if they sin. God suddenly plunges them down, but if they act well in the sight of Yahweh, he exalts them as quickly as a cloud. Then Balak has repeatedly tried to discover in what spot they shouldest be able to work them woe, but they will have nothing to do with sorceries. They baffle and put to naught the sorceries and prophecies of other nations by their pious deeds. When they set forth into battle, they practice no magic, but the high priests, clad in the Urim and Thummim, consults Yahweh about the outcome of the battle. There will even be a time when Israel will sit before the Lord like a pupil before his master, and will receive the revelation of the secrets of the Torah from him, so that even the angels will consult Israel concerning the secrets revealed to them by God. For the angels are not permitted to approach God as closely as the Israelites in the Messianic time. There is not indeed upon the earth a nation like Israel. The last thing they do before going to sleep is to devote themselves to the study of the Torah and the fulfillment of its laws, and this also is their first occupation upon awaking. As soon as they arise, they recite the Shema and adore God, and not until after they have done this do they go about their business. If evil spirits come to attack them, or if disaster threatens them, they worship their God, and as soon as they utter the words, Our Lord, our God is one, the harmful spirits become powerless against them and whisper after them the words, Praise be the name of the glory of his kingdom for ever and ever. When at night they retire, they again recite the Shema, whereupon the angels of the day pass on the trust of guarding them to the angels of the night, and when upon awakening they again worship their Lord, the angels of the night again pass them on to be guarded by the angels of the day. And when Balak for the second time saw Balaam, instead of cursing, blessed Israel, he brought him to the top of Peor, thinking that peradventure it would please God to have him curse them from thence. For by his sorcery Balak had discovered that a great disaster was to fall upon Israel on the top of Peor, and thought that this disaster might be their curse from Balaam. He was, however, mistaken in this suspicion, for the disaster in that spot was none other than Israel's sin with the daughters of Moab, and God's punishment for this. So Balaam, on the other hand, made no further attempts to induce God to curse Israel, but thought he might be able to bring misfortune upon Israel by emulating the sins they had committed in the desert, and in this way to conjure up God's wrath against them. but the desert had also been the place where Israel had accepted the Torah. Hence the mention of the desert called up God's love instead of his wrath. Balaam himself, when he let his eyes wander over the camp of Israel, he perceived how their tents were so pitched that no one might see what was going on in the homes of the others, found himself compelled to burst into praise of Israel, and under the inspiration of the prophetic spirit, the curses he had intended to speak were changed in his mouth into blessings, and he spoke of the extent and importance of the kingdom of Israel. But whereas Moses blessed his people in a low, quiet voice, Balaam spoke his words of blessing in a very loud voice, so that all the other nations might hear, and out of envy make war against Israel. Balaam's blessings were therefore accounted to not him as blessings, but as curses. And God said, I have promised Abraham, and I will bless him that bless thee, and curse thee that curse thee. Hence I will account Balaam's blessings as curses. And indeed, all of Balaam's blessings later turned to curses, except his blessing that houses of teaching and of prayer should never be missing among Israel. The words that Balaam announced were heard by all the inhabitants of the earth, and such power did God lend to his voice, for he knew that at some future time there would be a man born of woman who would pass himself for a god, who would mislead all the world. Hence, Yahweh permitted all the world to hear Balaam's words that said, God is not a man, and the man that passes himself for God lieth. But he that will mislead the world by declaring that he will disappear for a time and then reappear will promise what he can never fulfill. Woe then to that nation that will lend ear to the man who will pass himself for God. Balaam furthermore announced the events that would come to pass at the time of David's sovereignty, and also what will happen at the end of days, in the time of Messiah, when Rome and all the other nations will be destroyed by Israel, excepting only the descendants of Jethro, who will participate in Israel's joy and sorrows. Yea, the Canaanites are to be the ones to announce to Israel the arrival of the Messiah, and the sons of the Canaanite Jonabab, who are to be the first at the time of the Messiah to bring the offerings to at the temple, and to announce to Jerusalem its deliverance. This was Balaam's last prophecy. After this, the prophetic spirit left Balaam, and God in his way granted Moshe's wish to receive the gift of prophecy as a special distinction to Israel. Balaam was the last prophet of the nations. Although Balaam had not been able to fulfill Balak's wish and curse Israel, he did not leave him before giving him advice as to how he might bring ruin to Israel, saying, the God of this people loathes unchastity, but they are very eager to possess linen garments, so pitch tents. Then at the entrances have old women offer these articles for sale. Induce them in this way to enter the interior of the tents, where they will be surprised by young harlots who will seduce them to unchastity, so that God may punish them for their sin. Throw the stick up in the air and it will return to its original place. The Moabite nation that owes its existence to the illegal relations of Lot and his daughter could not deny its origin. The following Balaam's counsel to tempt Israel to unchastity. They pitched tents, filled them with pretty women, whom they provided with valuable things, and had old women take up their posts at the doors of the tents, whose task it was to lure the passing Israelites into their interior. If an Israelite passed to buy something of the Moabites, the old woman at the entrance to the tent would thus address him: Dost thou not wish to buy linen garments that were made in Bethshan? Then they would show him a sample of goods and name the price, and finally add, Go within, and thou wilt see wares still more beautiful. If he went within, he was received by a young woman who was richly adorned and perfumed, and would at first set for him a price much lower than the value of the goods, and then invite him to do as if he were at home, and to choose the article he liked best. While he sat there, he was treated with wine, and the young woman invited him to drink with the words, Why do we love ye while you hate us? Are we not all descendants of one man? Was not Terah our ancestor as much as yours? If thou wilt not eat of our sacrifices, or what we have cooked, here are calves and fowl that thou mayest slaughter in accordance with thy law. But as soon as the Israelite had allowed himself to be persuaded to drink, he was absolutely in the hands of the shameless woman, intoxicated with wine. His passion for the woman was soon kindled, but she agreed to satisfy his desires only after he first worshipped Peor, the god of the Moabites. Now, the worship of this idol consisted in nothing else than the complete baring of the body. Hence the Israelites, seeing no evil in it, declared themselves willing to follow the summons of the Moabite woman. And in this way they were seduced both to unchastity and to idolatry by the Moabite woman. At first the men were ashamed and committed this whoredom with the Moabite woman in secret, but they soon lost this feeling of shame and betook themselves, 2 by 2, in their lewd actions. Israel's moral degeneration is to be partly explained by this, that the place where they found themselves was apt to tempt them to lewdness. For there are springs whose waters have various effects upon those who partake of them. One kind of water strengthens, another weakens. One makes beautiful, another makes ugly. One makes chaste, another brings about lewdness. Now there was in Shittim, where the Israelites then dwelt, the well of lewdness, out of which the inhabitants of Sodom had erstwhile fetched water, but from which, since the destruction of the sinful cities, no one had drunk. But for this reason the people had until then been chaste. But Israel, as soon as they tasted of this water, gave up their chaste manner of life. This disastrous spring will lose its force only in the Messianic time, when God will cause it to dry up. When the people's shamelessness became more and more widespread, God commanded Moshe to appoint judges to punish the sinners, and as it was difficult to discover these through the agency of witnesses, God marked them by causing the cloud of glory to lay spread over the camp of Israel to disappear for the sinners. Those that were not covered by the cloud of glory were thus clearly marked as sinners. And God appointed as judges and executioners the 7 myriads, 8,600 officers of the people, giving them the order that each of them execute 2 sinners. These carried out Moshe's command and stoned the sinners, whose corpses then hung up in the gallows for a few minutes. This was the legal punishment, for these sinners had not only committed whoredom with the woman of Moab, but had worshipped the Moab idol Peor, and idolatry is punishable with death by stoning. While the judges administered their stern offices, the tribe of Simeon approached their prince Zimri and said to him, "People are being executed, and thou sittest still as if nothing was going on." He therefore took with him 24,000 men. He betook himself to Cosbi, Balak's daughter, and without considering God or men, he requested her in the presence of many people to yield herself to him and to satisfy his evil desires. Now Balak had ordered his daughter Cosbi to employ her beauty only for the sake of enticing Moses, thinking, "Whatever evil may be decreed by God against Israel, Moses will be brought to naught. But if my daughter should succeed in seducing him to sin, then all Israel will be in my hand." Hence Cosbi said to Zimri, "My father ordered me to be obedient to the wishes of Moses alone, and to none other, for he is a king, and so is my father, and a king's daughter is fit for none but a king." Zimri, however, replied, "I am a greater man than Moses, for he is chief only of the third tribe of Israel, whereas I am prince of the tribe of Simeon, the second of the Israelite tribes. And if thou wilt, I will convince thee that I am a greater man than Moshe, for I will take thee to myself in his presence without paying attention to his prohibition." Zimri then seized Cosbi by the locks of her hair and brought her before Moshe, whom he had addressed as follows: "Tell me, son of Amram, is this woman permitted me, or is she forbidden me?" And Moshe said, "She is forbidden to thee." Zimri answered, "Art thou really the faithful expounder of the Torah, whose reliability God praised with the words, 'He is faithful in all mine house'? How then canst thou assert that she is forbidden me? For then thy wife would be forbidden to thee, for she is a Midianite, like this woman, and this one is a noble woman of a noble family, whereas thy wife is the daughter of an adulterous priest." At those words Moshe, Eleazar, and the elders began to weep, for they knew not how to make answer to Zimri's insolent words, nor what they could do to restrain this sinner from the accomplishment of a sin. And God said to Moshe, "Where is thy wisdom? Thou didst need to utter only one word, and Korah and all his company were swallowed by the earth. Canst thou now do nothing better than to weep?" The Holy Spirit exclaimed at Moshe's perplexity and silence. "The stout-hearted are spoiled. They have slept their sleep." God, who calls the pious to strict account, punished Moshe for the lack of decision that he displayed on this occasion by leaving his burial place unknown to mankind. So that's why people don't know where Moshe is buried, because of his lack of speaking up on this occasion. While Moshe and other pious men were irresolute and deliberated whether or not Zimri deserved death, Phinehas said to Moshe, "O my great uncle, didst thou not teach me, when thou didst return from Mount Sinai, that was the zealot task for the sake of God's law to slay those who commit unchastity with non-Jewish women, or non-Israelite women, it should be?" Phinehas took the liberty of pointing out the law to his teacher Moshe, who had forgotten it, because when God's name is profaned, no man should consider the respect due to a teacher. Wherefore, Phinehas thought now only of establishing God's law, and in doing this it was necessary to recall it to Moshe's mind. Moses indeed did not take it all amiss, but said to Phinehas, let the leader of the letter be its bearer also. Let the reader of the letter be its bearer also. Words by which he called upon Phinehas himself to visit punishment upon the sinners. Phinehas was now for a time in doubt whether he should dare to punish the sinners, for it was to be expected that he would eventually meet his death in this way, being 1 against 2, Simeon and his mistress Cosby. When, however, the plague that God had sent upon Israel upon the account of their sins spread and more rapidly, Phinehas determined to risk his life to try to kill the sinners. For, he said to himself, the horse goes willingly into battle and is ready to be slain, only to be of service to its master. How much more does it behoove me to expose myself to death in order to sanctify God's name? He found himself all the more impelled to act thus because he could not well leave the punishment of the sinners to others. He said, the tribe of Reuben can effect nothing in this instance, because their grandsire Reuben was himself suspect of an unchaste action. Nothing is to be expected from the tribe of Simeon, for it follows the sinful example of its prince Zimri. The tribe of Judah cannot well be of use in this matter, because their grandsire Judah committed unchastity with his daughter-in-law Tamar. Moshe himself is doomed to impotence because his wife Zipporah is a Midianite woman. Hence there remains nothing for me to interpose. So Phinehas now, prepared at the risk of his own life to punish Zimri for his sin, left the house of teaching where he had until now debated the case of Zimri with Moses and all the other pious men, and had himself provided with a lance, having none with him because no armed men can enter a house of teaching, that his weapon might not betray him. He detached the upper iron part of the lance and hid it in his bosom, and leaned upon the wooden shaft as if it were a staff. When he reached the house of Zimri and Cosby, were giving extravagant play to their passions, the people said to him, Whence, Phinehas, and whither? He replied, Do ye not know that the tribe of Levi is always to be found where the tribe of Simeon is? Then they permitted him to enter the house, but said, It seems that even the Pharisees now permit intercourse with the heathen woman. When Phinehas had entered, he drew his lance and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. Phinehas' fear that these two might attack him was not realized, for God performed no less than 12 miracles for Phinehas, which not only made it impossible for the sinners to attack him, but also showed the people that his action found favor in the sight of the Lord. The first miracle was that the angel would not allow the sinful couple to separate when Phinehas surprised them. The second miracle was that the angel stopped their mouths so that they could not cry out for help. The third miracle was that Phinehas' lance struck the man's and the woman's pudenda, P-U-D-N-D-A. The fourth miracle was that the upper iron part of the lance extended so that Phinehas could at once pierce the man as well as the woman. The fifth miracle was that Phinehas' arm was significantly strong to lift both upon the point of his lance. The sixth miracle was that the wooden shaft of the lance sustained the weight of 2 persons. The seventh miracle was that the 2 bodies remained poised on the lance and did not fall off. The eighth miracle was that the angel turned the shameless pair around so that all might see that Phinehas had surprised them in flagranti. The ninth miracle was that no blood flowed from them, although they had been thrust through, or else Phinehas would have been polluted. The 10th miracle was that the shameless couple did not give up the ghost as long as Phinehas bore them upon the point of his lance, as he would otherwise have been polluted by their corpses. The 11th miracle was that the angel raised the doorposts of the room so that Phinehas might pass through with the sinners upon the point of his lance. And the 12th miracle was the tribe of Simeon prepared to avenge Prince Simeon's death upon Phinehas. The angel sent a plague upon them, so that they were all impotent against him. Phinehas was not, however, content with having punished the sinners, but also tried to reconcile God with Israel. He threw the 2 dead bodies upon the ground, saying to God, "Why, alas, hast thou on account of the sins of these 2 slain 24,000 Israelites?" For this was the number that had been snatched away by the plague that God had sent upon Israel for their sins. The angels now wanted to plunge Phinehas into death for his bold words, but God bade them desist, saying, "Leave him in peace. He is a zealot, and the son of a zealot, and an appeaser of wrath, the son of an appeaser of wrath." So while God expressed his entire satisfaction with Phinehas' act, it found among adversaries among Israel who would scornfully call after him, "Behold, this man, the grandson of one who fattened calves to offer them up to an idol, dared to slay a prince among Israel." This spiteful remark referred to the fact that Phinehas had descended on his mother's side not only from Joseph but from Jethro also, who before his conversion had been a priest of idols. Interesting. God therefore said to Moshe, "Phinehas the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, has turned my wrath away from the children of Israel. Hence I offer him my greeting of peace. For it was he who, zealous for my sake, preserved the seed of Abraham." The reason God designated Phinehas as the son of Eleazar and the grandson of Aaron was that he wanted to stop the mouths of Phinehas's detractors who pretended that he was nothing but a grandson of the heathen priest Jethro, ignoring the fact that he was at the same time the grandson of Aaron, the high priest before the Lord. God was not content with the greeting of peace, but bade Moses tell Phinehas, "With thy mouth thou hast defended Israel. Therefore, as thy priest's portion shalt thou receive